The rain drummed against the windows of Moonlight Brew Café like impatient fingers, each drop creating tiny rivers that blurred the city lights beyond. Nora Chen sat in her favorite corner booth, the one with the worn velvet cushions and the perfect view of the bustling street. Her sketchbook lay open before her, charcoal pencil dancing across the cream-colored paper as she captured the essence of the elderly man reading his newspaper 3 tables away. This was her sanctuary, every Tuesday and Thursday evening after her shifts at the small design firm downtown. She would come here to decompress. The cafe's warm amber lighting and the gentle hum of conversation created the perfect atmosphere for her art. Here, she could observe the world without being observed. Invisible behind her cascading dark hair and oversized sweater. Tonight felt different, though. The storm outside seemed to mirror something restless stirring within her. At 26, Nora had built a comfortable life of routines and predictable patterns. Her small apartment, her reliable job, her quiet evenings at the cafe, everything was safe, controlled, and exactly as she liked it. Or so she told herself. The stranger arrived at the cafe door chimed, bringing with it a gust of cold air and the scent of rain. Nora glanced up briefly, her artist's eye automatically cataloging the newcomer before returning to her sketch. Tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair dampened by the storm and a charcoal gray coat that spoke of quality and expense. He paused in the doorway, surveying the crowded space with an intensity that made several patrons look up from their laptops and conversations. Something about him commanded attention without demanding it. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to having the world arrange itself around his presence. But tonight the world seemed determined to test that assumption. Every table was occupied, every cozy corner claimed by couples, sharing desserts or students buried in textbooks. His gaze swept the room methodically until it landed on her table. Nora's heart skipped as those storm-gray eyes met hers across the crowded space. For a moment that stretched like taffy, neither looked away. Then, as if making a decision that would change everything, he began walking toward her. "Excuse me," his voice was low, cultured, with just a hint of roughness that suggested long days and difficult decisions. "I know this is presumptuous, but would you mind if I shared your table? I promise I won't disturb your work." Nora's first instinct was to politely decline. She'd come here for solitude, for the peaceful bubble where she could exist without having to navigate the complexities of human interaction. But something in his expression stopped her. Not arrogance or entitlement, but a kind of weary hope, as if her answer mattered more than it should. Yes, of course," she heard herself saying, closing her sketchbook protectively against her chest. Unexpected revelations. Gabriel Stone, though she didn't know his name yet, settled into the seat across from her with fluid grace. He ordered a simple black coffee from the approaching waitress, then sat back and simply breathed. Nora found herself stealing glances at him while pretending to organize her art supplies. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes. That spoke of stress and sleepless nights. His hands, she noticed, were elegant but showed faint scars. Someone who worked with his hands despite his obvious affluence. "You're an artist," he said suddenly, nodding toward her sketchbook. It wasn't a question. A designer, actually. Well, trying to be. Nora tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit from childhood. "I work at a small firm, but this," she gestured to her supplies, "this is where I really create. MAIC." The request was so gently asked that before she could second-guess herself, Nora was opening her sketchbook. His reaction wasn't what she expected. Instead of the polite interest most people showed, his eyes widened with genuine appreciation. "These are extraordinary," he said, carefully turning the pages. "The way you capture emotion in just a few lines. This woman here, she's remembering something sad, isn't she? And this child, you can almost hear his laughter." Nora felt heat bloom. In her cheeks, you actually see it. Most people just see drawings. Then most people aren't really looking. His smile transformed his entire face, chasing away the shadows and revealing someone much younger than his careful composure suggested. "I'm Gabriel, by the way. And I have a confession. I didn't just come over here because it was the only available table." The moment that changes everything. Before Nora could ask what he meant, disaster struck with the efficiency that only a crowded cafe could provide. A harried server, juggling too many orders and moving too quickly, caught her foot on a chair leg. The tray she carried tilted dramatically, sending a large iced mocha flying through the air in a perfect arc that ended directly in Nora's lap. The cold was shocking, seeping through her jeans and spreading across her sketchbook. But worse than the physical discomfort was the mortification. Every head in the cafe turned toward their table, curious eyes taking in the scene. Nora felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as she looked down at the brown stain spreading across her favorite sketches. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." The server looked like she might cry. "I'll get towels. I'll pay for cleaning. I'm so hey." Gabriel's voice cut through the panic with calm authority. He was already standing, pulling napkins from the dispenser. "Accidents happen. No harm done." He moved around the table, kneeling beside Nora's chair without regard for his expensive pants. "Are you hurt? Did any of the ice hit you?" Nora shook, her head still too stunned to speak. She watched as he carefully lifted her sketchbook, examining the damage with the focused attention of someone who understood the value of irreplaceable things. "The good news," he said softly, so only she could hear, "is that charcoal is surprisingly resilient. A good conservator could probably save most of these. Bad news is that your jeans are probably done for." Despite everything, Nora found herself smiling. These old things, they've survived worse. She gestured helplessly at the mess. "Hey, I should probably go home and change." Gabriel stood, pulling out his wallet and placing several bills on the table, far more than necessary to cover the drinks and trouble. Then he did something that stopped Nora's breath entirely. He leaned down, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar, and something clean like rain. "I've been waiting for you," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "I didn't know it until tonight, but I've been waiting for someone who sees the world the way you do. Someone real." And then he was gone, disappearing into the storm. As suddenly as he'd arrived, leaving only the faint scent of his cologne and the echo of words that would haunt Nora's dreams for weeks to come. The lingering mystery. Nora sat in the aftermath, still processing what had happened. The server had cleaned up the mess and apologized profusely before moving on to other customers. The cafe gradually returned to its normal rhythm of quiet conversations and clinking cups. But nothing felt normal anymore. She looked down at her sketchbook, its pages now wrinkled and stained, but somehow still beautiful. Like everything that had happened tonight, the damage told a story not of destruction, but of unexpected encounters and moments that changed everything. "I've been waiting for you." The words replayed in her mind as she gathered her things and stepped out into the night. The storm had passed, leaving the streets washed clean and gleaming under the streetlights. As she walked home, Nora couldn't shake the feeling that her quiet, predictable life had just been turned upside down by a stranger with storm-gray eyes and a whisper that promised everything. She had no way of knowing that. Gabriel Stone, CEO of one of the city's most innovative tech companies, was thinking the exact same thing as he sat in his car 3 blocks away, watching the rain streak down his windshield and wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his carefully controlled life. The game, as they say, had begun. 3 days passed before Nora could bring herself to touch her damaged sketchbook. It sat on her small kitchen table like a monument to that strange evening, its coffee-stained pages a reminder of storm-gray eyes and whispered promises. She had tried to return to her normal routine, but everything felt different now. The familiar walls of her apartment seemed smaller, her predictable work more tedious. Even her favorite corner at the design firm felt like a cage. "You've been distracted all week," her colleague Jennifer observed during their lunch break. Did something happen? Nora considered telling her about Gabriel, but how could she explain something she didn't understand herself? A stranger had whispered 6 words to her, and now her entire world felt shifted on its axis. Instead, she shrugged and mumbled something about creative block. That evening, curiosity finally won over caution. Nora opened her laptop and typed Gabriel Stone into the search engine, her heart hammering as if she were committing some terrible crime. The results that flooded her screen made her breath catch in her throat. Gabriel Stone, CEO of Stone Industries. Tech innovator. Billionaire entrepreneur. Gosh. The headlines painted a picture of a man who lived in a completely different universe from hers. There were photos of him at charity galas, shaking hands with politicians, cutting ribbons at new facilities, In every image, he wore the same composed expression she remembered from the cafe. But now she could see the calculated distance in his eyes, the careful way he held himself apart from everyone around him. A world apart, Stone Industries occupied 3 floors of the city's most prestigious business district. The company specialized in sustainable technology, developing everything from solar panel innovations to electric vehicle batteries. Gabriel had taken over the company from his father 5 years ago and transformed it from a modest family business into a global powerhouse. The more Nora read, the more impossibly distant he seemed. This was a man who made decisions that affected thousands of employees, whose innovations were changing entire industries. What could someone like that possibly want with a small-town girl who drew pictures for greeting card companies? Yet she couldn't forget the way he'd looked at her sketches, the genuine appreciation in his voice when he'd called them extraordinary. There had been something vulnerable in that moment, something that didn't match the polished image staring back at her from her laptop screen. The unexpected call Friday morning brought an email that made Nora spill coffee all over her keyboard. It was from Rebecca Martinez, senior partner at Martinez & Associates, one of the city's most prestigious design agencies. The subject line read, "Urgent project opportunity, confidential." "Ms. Chen," the email began, "your portfolio has come to our attention through a mutual acquaintance who spoke very highly of your work. We have an immediate need for a graphic designer to work on a high-profile rebranding project. The timeline is tight, but the compensation is substantial. If you're interested, please call my office to arrange a meeting." Nora read the email 3 times before it sank in. Martinez & Associates was the kind of agency she dreamed of working with but never imagined would notice her. Their clients included major corporations, luxury brands, and international nonprofits. She'd applied there twice in the past 2 years and never even received a rejection letter. Her hand shook as she dialed the number. Within an hour, she had an appointment for Monday morning. The revelation: Rebecca Martinez's office was a study in elegant minimalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, while the walls displayed award-winning campaigns and artistic photographs. Rebecca herself was a woman in her 40s, with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," Rebecca said, gesturing for Nora to sit. "I'm going to be direct with you, Miss Chen. This project is unusual. Our client specifically requested you after seeing your work." Nora's heart skipped. "Specifically requested me. But I don't understand. My portfolio isn't exactly high profile." Nevertheless, they were quite insistent. Rebecca opened a thick folder. "The client is Stone Industries. They're looking to rebrand their entire corporate identity, logo, website, marketing materials, everything. It's a 3-month project with a budget that would typically require a team of 5 designers. They want just you." The room seemed to tilt around Nora. Stone Industries, Gabriel's company. This couldn't be a coincidence. I'm not sure I'm qualified for something that large," she managed to say. "The client seems to think otherwise. They've offered to pay double our usual rate, with a substantial bonus upon completion." "Miss Chen, this is the kind of opportunity that could transform your career." Rebecca leaned forward. "There's one unusual stipulation. Mr. Stone wants to be personally involved in the creative process. You'll be working directly with him." The confrontation Monday afternoon found Nora standing in the lobby of Stone Industries, her portfolio clutched in sweaty hands. The building was even more intimidating in person, all gleaming marble and soaring glass, with abstract sculptures that probably cost more than her annual salary. She felt like an imposter in her best suit, a small-town girl playing dress-up in a world of corporate giants. The elevator carried her to the 34th floor, where Gabriel's assistant, a poised woman named Catherine, led her through a maze of offices and conference rooms. Everything was designed to impress and intimidate, from the panoramic city views to the awards displayed in glass cases. "Mr. Stone is waiting in his office," Catherine said, stopping before massive oak doors. "He's cleared his entire afternoon for this meeting." Nora's heart was racing as the doors opened. Gabriel's office was surprisingly understated compared to the rest of the building. It was large and luxurious, but it felt personal too. There were books on the shelves that looked actually read, plants that someone clearly cared for, photographs that seemed more sentimental than professional. Gabriel stood with his back to the door, looking out at the city through floor to ceiling. Windows. He wore a navy suit that fit him perfectly, and for a moment, Nora was struck again by how different he seemed from the man who'd knelt on a cafe floor to help. Clean up spilled coffee. Hello, Nora, he said without turning around. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. You, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You arranged all this. No, he turned, and she saw the same storm-gray eyes that had haunted her dreams, but they were guarded now, professional. I told you that you were extraordinary. I meant it. This is insane. Nora set down her portfolio with shaking hands. Can't just hire someone because you met them in a cafe. I could be terrible at this. I could ruin your company's image. Could be you. He moved closer, and she caught that familiar scent of cedar and rain. Show me your worst work, Nora. Show me something you've created that doesn't have soul, that doesn't make people feel something. She stared at him, speechless. You can't, can you? Because you're incapable of creating anything without pouring your heart into it. That's exactly what my company needs. The real Gabriel? Why? She asked. Really? Why? You could have any designer in the world. Why me? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, studying her face as if trying to decide how much. Truth to reveal. Do you know what it's like to live in a world where everything is calculated? Where every relationship is potentially transactional? Where people see you as an opportunity instead of a person? Nora shook her head. I've been the CEO of this company for 5 years. In that time, I've attended hundreds of business dinners, charity galas, and networking events. I've met thousands of people, and not one of them has ever looked at me the way you looked at your sketches that night. With pure passion, without agenda, walked to his desk and picked up a small object. When he turned back, Nora gasped. It was her charcoal pencil, the one she'd been using the night they met. You dropped this when you were gathering your things. I had it cleaned and sharpened. He held it out to her. I've been carrying it in my pocket for 3 days, trying to work up the courage to return it. Nora took the pencil with trembling fingers. You could have just called, could I? What was I supposed to say? Hello, we met when you spilled coffee on yourself, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. That would have sounded like the worst pickup line in history. Despite everything, Nora found herself smiling. It kinda does, exactly. So I did what I do best. I created a business opportunity. Legitimate one, I should add. We really do need rebranding, and after seeing your work, I can't imagine anyone else doing it. The choice before them, this is crazy, Nora said, but her voice lacked conviction. She was looking around his office with new eyes, seeing the man behind the corporate image. There was a photograph on his desk of a much younger Gabriel with an older man who shared his features, his father, she guessed. Both men were covered in grease and grinning, standing next to what looked like an early electric car prototype. Maybe, Gabriel agreed. Yeah, but sometimes the best things come from a little craziness. What happens when the project is over? She asked. What happens when you realize I'm just a regular person with nothing special to offer someone like you? Gabriel stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. What happens when you realize that all this, he gestured around the office, doesn't define who I am? Is that underneath the suits and the corporate responsibilities? I'm just a man who's been waiting his whole life to find someone who sees the world the way you do. The space between them felt charged with possibility and danger. Nora could feel herself standing at a crossroads with her safe, predictable life stretching out in one direction and something completely unknown beckoning from the other. I said, if I take this job, she said quietly, it has to be about the work. I need to know I earned this opportunity, not that it was given to me because of some moment in a cafe. Gabriel nodded solemnly. Deal. But I have one condition of my own. What? When this project is finished, when you've proven to yourself and everyone else that you're brilliant at what you do, I want the chance to take you to dinner. Not as a client, not as a CEO, but as Gabriel, as the man who's been waiting for you. Nora looked down at the charcoal pencil in her hand, then back up at Gabriel's face. She could see the uncertainty there, carefully hidden, but real. It's powerful. Man who commanded boardrooms and influenced markets was nervous about her answer. Okay, she whispered, but I'm choosing the restaurant. Gabriel's smile transformed his entire face. Deal. As Nora left Stone Industries that afternoon, contract signed and project timeline in hand, she realized that her quiet life had officially come to an end. Whatever happened next, there would be no going back to the invisible corner booth at Moonlight Brew Café. She was about to step into a world she'd never imagined. Working alongside a man who'd already changed everything with 6 whispered words. The real adventure was just beginning. 6 weeks into the Stone Industries project, Nora had transformed. Not just professionally, though her designs were receiving praise from every department, but personally too. Working alongside Gabriel had peeled back layers of his corporate persona, revealing a man who was passionate about innovation deeply, loyal to his employees. And surprisingly funny when he forgot to be the CEO, their working relationship had developed into something that walked the fine line. Between professional collaboration and intimate connection, Gabriel would bring her coffee during late-night design sessions, always remembering that she preferred oat milk and a dash of cinnamon. She would leave small sketches on his desk, caricatures of serious board members, or whimsical interpretations of their latest product, concepts that never failed to make him smile. But the real world was beginning to intrude on their carefully constructed bubble. Have you seen this? Jennifer burst into Nora's temporary office at Stone Industries, tablet in hand. Her face was flushed with excitement and concern. You're in the society pages. Nora's blood ran cold as she looked at the screen. There, in full color, was a photograph of her and Gabriel leaving the building together the previous evening. The headline read, "Mystery Woman Captures Tech Titan's Heart." The article was full of speculation about her background, her qualifications, and most painfully, whether she was gold-digging her way into Gabriel's fortune. "They make it sound like I'm some kind of opportunist," Nora whispered, reading the cruel comments below the article. Strangers were dissecting her appearance. Her clothes, her worthiness to be seen with someone like Gabriel Stone. "You know that's not true," Jennifer said softly. "Anyone who's seen you work these past weeks knows you've earned your place here, but the damage was done." The invisible wall that Nora had always felt between her world and Gabriel's suddenly became very visible, very real, and very high. The pressure mounts, the article, was just the beginning. Over the next few days, photographers seemed to lurk around every corner. Nora's small apartment building was staked out by gossip bloggers. Her mother called from Ohio, worried and confused after seeing her daughter's face on entertainment websites. "Don't understand, honey," her mother said during their tense phone conversation. "When did you start dating a billionaire? Why didn't you tell us?" "We're not dating, Mom. He's my client. We're working together." "That's not what these articles are saying. They're calling you his girlfriend, saying you're living together." Nora closed her eyes, feeling the walls of her old life and her new life crashing together in the most uncomfortable way possible. The articles are wrong. It's all speculation. But even as she said it, she wondered if she was lying to herself as much as to her mother. What were she and Gabriel exactly? They hadn't kissed since that moment in the lobby weeks ago, but the tension between them was undeniable. Every shared glance, every accidentally on purpose brush of hands when reviewing designs, every late-night conversation that drifted from business to personal, it all pointed to something deeper than a professional relationship. Its world. Revealed, the situation reached a breaking point when Gabriel's assistant informed Nora that she was expected to attend the annual Stone Industries charity gala as Gabriel's guest. It wasn't a request, Catherine explained apologetically, but a necessity. The press attention had made Nora's absence more conspicuous than her presence would be. "I can't," Nora told Gabriel when he found her hiding in the supply closet, having what could generously be called a panic attack. "I don't belong in that world. I'll embarrass you." Gabriel knelt beside her, his expensive suit wrinkling as he took her hands in his. "Hey, look at me. You could never embarrass me. You're brilliant, talented, and stronger than you realize." "I'm a small-town girl who draws pictures for greeting cards," Nora said, tears threatening. "These people will see right through me." Gabriel said fiercely, "I hope they do. Hope they see exactly who you are. Someone real in a room full of people wearing masks." The gala was held at the city's most exclusive hotel, in a ballroom that probably cost more to rent for one night than Nora made in a year. Gabriel had arranged for a stylist to help her prepare, The woman had worked magic, transforming Nora into someone who looked like she belonged among the city's elite, but looks, as Nora quickly discovered, were deceiving. The breaking point: the evening started well enough. Gabriel stayed close to her side, introducing her to key figures in the tech world and local philanthropy scene. His pride in her work was evident as he described the rebranding project to anyone who would listen. For a few hours, Nora almost believed she could fit into this glittering world. Then she overheard the conversation that shattered her fragile confidence. "I don't understand what Gabriel sees in her," a woman's voice drifted from the ladies' lounge. "She's pretty enough, I suppose, but hardly sophisticated. Did you see how she fumbled with the oyster fork at dinner? Maybe that's the appeal?" Another voice replied with cruel amusement. "Rich men sometimes like to play savior to struggling artists. Makes them feel noble. How long do you think it will last? These charity cases never do. Remember that sculptor Gabriel dated 2 years ago? What was her name? Rachel something? He got bored and moved on within 6 months." Nora felt sick. Rachel something, another artist. Another charity case that Gabriel had grown tired of. The women's laughter followed her as she fled the bathroom, their words echoing in her head like poison. She found Gabriel in the main ballroom, surrounded by a group of investors, animated as he discussed some new technology initiative. Completely in his element, confident, powerful, belonging in a way that Nora knew she never would. When he spotted her across the room, his face lit up with that smile that had become so precious to her. But now, it felt different. Was she just another project to him? Another struggling artist to elevate until the novelty wore off? "The confrontation I need to leave?" Nora told him when he approached, concern evident in his storm gray eyes. "Wrong? You look pale. I need air. I'll take a cab home." Gabriel immediately moved to follow her. "I'll come with you." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "Stay? This is your world, Gabriel. These are your people." Something in her tone must have warned him, because his expression grew serious. "Nora, what happened?" She wanted to tell him about the conversation in the bathroom, about feeling like a fraud in borrowed designer clothes, about the growing certainty that she was living in a fairy tale that would inevitably end. Instead, she said, "I think we should keep things professional from now on." The words hit Gabriel like a physical blow. "Professional? Nora, what are you talking about? The project is almost finished. After that, we should go back to our separate lives." "Our separate lives?" Gabriel's voice was low, dangerous. "Is that what you think this is? Some kind of temporary arrangement, isn't it?" Nora challenged, her heart breaking even as she spoke. "Isn't that what it's always been? You get to play the charitable billionaire. I get to pretend I belong in your world for a few months, and then we both move on." Gabriel stared at her for a long moment, hurt and anger warring in his expression. "Is that really what you think? Of me? Of us?" Nora couldn't answer. The lump in her throat made speech impossible. "Fine," Gabriel said quietly. "If that's how you want it, we'll keep it professional." The aftermath. The final 2 weeks of the project were torture. Gabriel was polite, distant, everything Nora had asked for, and nothing she actually wanted. Their easy camaraderie was gone, replaced by stilted conversations about color palettes and font choices. He stopped bringing her coffee. She stopped leaving sketches on his desk. The rebranding launch was a massive success. The tech world praised Stone Industries' new visual identity as innovative and emotionally resonant. Nora received job offers from 3 major agencies. Everything she had dreamed of professionally was coming true, and she had never been more miserable. On her final day at Stone Industries, Catherine approached her with an envelope. "Mr. Stone asked me to give this to you," she said gently. And Nora, "For what it's worth, I've worked for him for 8 years. I've never seen him as happy as he was these past few months." Inside the envelope was her final paycheck, with a bonus that was far more generous than contracted, and a note in Gabriel's familiar handwriting. "Thank you for showing me what it means to see the world through an artist's eyes. You've changed not just our company's image, but my entire perspective on what's possible. I hope someday you'll realize that the magic wasn't in any transformation I made in your life, but in who you've always been." G, attached to the note. was a small sketch, her own drawing of the florist from that first night at Moonlight Brew Café. Somehow, Gabriel had saved it from the coffee damage and had it professionally restored. Every line was perfect, exactly as she had drawn it, the revelation that night. Nora sat in her apartment staring at the restored sketch. She thought about the woman who had drawn it, someone afraid to take up space in the world, content to observe from the shadows. Then she thought about who she had become over the past 2 months, confident enough to present to corporate boards, talented enough to lead a major rebranding effort, strong enough to hold her own in Gabriel's world. The transformation hadn't been Gabriel's doing. It had been hers all along. Her phone rang. It was Jennifer. "Have you seen the news?" her friend asked excitedly. "Stone Industries just announced they're opening a new division, the Stone Foundation for Emerging Artists. It's going to provide grants and mentorship for young creatives who want to start their own businesses." Nora's heart clenched. Even after she'd walked away, Gabriel was still thinking about supporting artists like her. "There's more," Jennifer continued. "The foundation's headquarters. It's going to be housed in a renovated building on 5th Street, right next to a little cafe called Moonlight Brew." The choice the next morning was gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that had brought Gabriel into her life 2 months ago. Nora found herself walking toward Moonlight Brew, her restored sketch tucked carefully in her bag. The cafe looked exactly the same, warm amber light spilling through rain-streaked windows, the comfortable hum of conversation and clinking cups. But when Nora pushed through the door, she saw something that made her heart skip. Gabriel sat in her old corner booth, a black coffee growing cold in front of him. He wasn't checking his phone or reviewing business documents. He was simply sitting, staring out at the rain, looking lost in a way that made her chest ache. She approached, slowly, clutching her sketch like a talisman. "Is this seat taken?" she asked softly. Gabriel looked up, and the hope that flashed across his face before he could hide it told her everything she needed to know. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out," he said, echoing his words from there. First meeting in his office, Nora sat down across from him, placing the restored sketch on the table between them. "I'm sorry for what I said at the gala, for pushing you away, for being afraid." "You don't need to apologize for being afraid," Gabriel said gently. "I was afraid too, afraid that what I felt for you was too much, too fast, afraid that my world would swallow you whole." "Maybe it would have," Nora admitted, "but I think I'm stronger than I gave myself credit for." Gabriel reached across the table, his fingers tracing the edge of her sketch. You're the strongest person I know." "I heard about the foundation," she said. "I thought about calling it the Nora Chen Foundation for beautiful souls who don't know their own worth. But the board thought that was too long." Despite everything, Nora laughed. "Gabriel. I love you," he said simply. "Not the artist, not the project, not the idea of you. You, Nora Chen from Ohio, who sees magic in charcoal lines and believes that art can change the world. I love your terrible coffee spilling skills and your tendency to hide in supply closets when you're overwhelmed. I love how you make me feel like a better version of myself." Tears spilled down Nora's cheeks. "I love you too, even when you're being an arrogant CEO who thinks he can solve everything with grand gestures. Especially then. Gabriel stood and moved around the table, just as he had that first night. But this time, when he leaned down, it wasn't to whisper mysterious words. It was to kiss her properly, deeply, while the rain drummed against the windows and the cafe continued its gentle rhythm around them. When they broke apart, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. "So what happens now?" Nora whispered. Gabriel said, his voice warm with promise. "We write our own story. No scripts, no grand gestures. Just us figuring it out together." Outside, the storm was beginning to clear, and through the windows of Moonlight Brew Café, the first tentative rays of sunlight were breaking through the clouds. Some love stories begin with a whisper in the dark. Others begin with coffee spilled in a moment of chaos. The best ones, Nora thought, as Gabriel's hand found hers across the small table, begin with the courage to choose love over fear, again and again, one ordinary moment at a time. In the end, Gabriel had been right about one thing. He had been waiting for her. But what he hadn't realized was that she had been waiting for him too. waiting for someone who would see past her carefully constructed walls to the person she was meant to become, and now finally, the waiting was over.